Ready to drive your career, not just ride along? You're in the right place. Welcome to the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. I'm Simone E. Morris, your host and career strategist, here to give you the roadmap. Each week, we're cutting through the noise with strategies, stories, and insights to get you back in control. Your career clarity starts right here. Week's episode of the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. I'm delighted to have with us today Jeff Davis. He is the award-winning author of 4 books and a sought-after professional speaker, consultant, and mental health advocate. Jeff speaks and consults with schools, nonprofits, organizations, associations, and businesses. He's referred to as Mr. Mountaintop, known for his deep insights and openness, and I would say authenticity. He's traveled to 5 continents and holds a master's degree from Johns Hopkins Carey Business School. His new book, launching in May 2025, is The Courage to Leave, Breaking Free from Toxic Workplaces, where he shares his story and shines a light on all the dysfunction in the workplace. He's also sharing other people's stories. Jeff, welcome back to the Power of Owning Your Career podcast.
Simone, it is an absolute pleasure to be here, and I'm looking forward to our discussion here today.
Yes. I've been following your work and you just calling out and calling in leadership, calling in authentic leadership, and just calling out toxicity in the workplace. And this show is about people really taking ownership of their careers. So I thought, what a perfect way to invite you back to the show and talk about this topic, because oftentimes this can get in the way of career advancement, career acceleration. Thoughts?
Yes, you hit the nail on the head. And I will say this directly. Many of the wonderful, brilliant people that I featured in the book, who I interviewed at length, very in depth, and they told me, Simone, word for word, this wasn't just minor annoyances that had actively hurt their career. In fact, I have my dear friend Earl Talbot in the book. And, he talks about some of his experiences, and Earl talked about how his career actively was sabotaged because of the atrocious experiences he had. And that's the core we're talking about. These dysfunctional workplaces, they love to play it off. Oh, it's just a little bullying. Oh, it's just a little bit of dysfunction. No. It's ruining people's lives, and it's ruining their careers. And you just hit the nail on the head.
Oh my goodness. Well, let's backtrack a little bit. How do you define toxicity in the workplace? What are some examples of it?
Yeah, so for toxicity and dysfunction, it can go from everything to more minor examples to more extreme examples. And it's important to understand that it's all relative to how the person receives the behavior. So if someone is interpreting certain comments as bullying or as unacceptable or as harassment, then it's probably, upon investigation, bullying and harassment and unacceptable behavior. So when we look at what it actually means in the workplace, in more minor ways, it can be subtle put downs. It can be overlooking people. It can be nepotism. I see a lot of nepotism happening in the workplace. Sadly, I see a lot of discrimination occurring. I really made sure to go with the, diversity, equity, and inclusion in this book. Interviewed a number of powerful women for the book, and they talked about, very sadly, being sexually harassed in the workplace. So it can start out more subtle, minor ways, little, maybe leaving them out of an email chain, maybe that, leaving them out of the group lunch, but it can escalate quickly. It can be humiliating people in meetings. And then we can get to the more extreme parts of the workplace dysfunction scale. And that's when we talk about direct harassment. And these are some of my experiences as well. We talk about demands being made that make people feel deeply unsafe. We talk about legal situations. We talk about HR being involved, and we talk about people's lives being ruined. And the research shows this. So I know this is an absolute fact, that when you experience workplace bullying, apparently worldwide, more than half of the people who are being bullied are having some kind of suicidal intention or idea. And that's just tragically sad. And it's something we need to be aware of, that when people get bullied in the workplace, a lot of them are becoming suicidal. And that's what the research shows from both HR Acuity and from the Center of Suicide Prevention, which I have thoroughly backed in the book.
My goodness, this saddens me greatly. And as I hear you talk about some of this stuff, Jeff, I think, how are we in the year that we're in and we're still talking about sexual harassment and discrimination and all these other horrible things that can in fact happen. What is your impetus for writing the book?
Yes. So what happened in my experience, and this is just, it is what it is, just say it like it is. I've had a lot of dysfunctional workplace experiences. I'm grateful that I've had those day jobs and the contracting and the consulting to be able to support me as I've gone ahead with my career as a writer and a speaker, and now also sometimes also being requested to coach others as well. But the truth is, I experienced some severe situations. I'm going to give a couple examples, and to brace your audience, they are extreme, but I'm sharing this to help other people, and this explains why I've decided to share this on a global level. So I actually had a workplace experience at a team event where I swore at a colleague, and he took out a knife and he charged for my throat. And
Wow.
if it weren't for my dear friend Chris, Chris was a very respected man from the streets of Bridgeport, Connecticut. He was my best friend in the Connecticut office. He stepped in and blocked the guy. If Chris didn't step in and block the guy, it's entirely possible I would not be here right now. That's only one example. I've also, sadly, I've encountered corruption multiple times in the workplace. And Simone, I know we've talked about this offline. When I was living overseas, I encountered a very corrupt company. I decided to fight back with my team of lawyers, and I defeated them single-handedly while I was in the hospital. They'd been ruining people's lives for years, and I was the first person to stand up for them. And that was not just for me; that was for every person who they affected deeply and who they ruined their lives. Now, I say all this not because I wanted to make it about my experiences, but I want to say if I went through this suffering, then what are other people going through? And the people I've talked to, Simone, have been through just as bad, if not worse. And that's what I wanted to acknowledge and shed light on in this book. And it all stemmed from really my own bad experiences in the workplace.
Mm. Wow, powerful. Thanks for your transparency. I'm going to make sure I put like some disclaimers with the episode just so that people are ready for the authenticity. So let me ask you, how did that impact your career and your ability to advance in the workplace?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question, and I love that because I'm on a lot of I'm on a lot of these podcasts, and I have not yet been asked that question. So yeah, very very spot on. What I would say is that because I've been in these situations, I can speak both from my experience, I can speak from the research, and then of course all the people that I've featured as I've alluded to already. I'd say one is that it causes a lot of anxiety. These insidious workplaces wear deeply on your self-esteem and your self-confidence.
Mm.
And it's hard to advance not only in that dysfunctional company, but outside of it, because you begin doubting yourself. You begin thinking, wait, is this just me? And a lot of people I talk to is a very common thread of the people that I've interviewed dozens of people, in fact, hundreds, and they said, all of them said at one point or another they doubted themselves, and that stopped them from being able to advocate for themselves, from being able to stick up for themselves, for being able to speak up when they felt like they were overlooked for a promotion or a raise for unfair reasons. And people got it who worked half as hard or had half the results, but they got it for completely unfair reasons. So it wears on you as a person, and then it's so much harder to advance in your career because of the hit it takes on you as a person, and not to mention all the anxiety you have, not to mention it spilling into other areas of your life as well. So as we can tell here, it's a very, very, very serious global challenge. I'll even go so far to say it's a global pandemic at this point.
Mm. And I would imagine that there are monetary implications as well, because if you've got this anxiety or this impact, it could impact the amount of money that you're able to make in your career as well.
Yes, absolutely spot on. It impacts your performance. It leads to burnout. We look at the burnout pandemic, we look at absurd figures that over 60% of people worldwide have experienced burnout at least once, if not more. I mean, it's just mind-blowing. And when these people are trapped in these insidious, destructive, toxic environments, like all of these people have said, they aren't able to perform and earn the money. They aren't able to get the money they deserve. And then the company, instead of looking at themselves, will blame them. It's just so toxic. It's so destructive. And then they aren't able to provide for themselves, for their families, and it leads to this vicious downward spiral and some very, very sad situations.
So what can the listeners do proactively? Let's think about if someone is listening and they are in a toxic scenario, what are some things that they can do to care for themselves and to also, again, the show is about careers, to also help their careers?
Yeah, so first off, I'd like everyone listening to know you are not alone. So know that as you're caring for yourself and as you're looking to advance your career, that countless people are going through this. It's just not spoken up about yet enough. First of all, prioritize your mental health. Now, I want to be very practical on this show, Simone. I'm actually not going to recommend the listener to walk out on the spot because I know what it's like firsthand. You know, I live by myself. We all have bills to pay, and it's not always practical to walk out on the spot. So what does the listener do? Well, you prioritize your mental health by crafting out space every day for yourself, and that's where I encourage listeners to go into meditation, prayer, reflection, talking to friends, getting outside, going for walks. These are like very simple steps, but they're deceptively powerful because when you connect with people through those lifelines, that's when you're able to connect back to your core. And once you've connected back to your core, it doesn't mean you're going to change your work environment or solve it right away, but maybe you can leave work just a little bit earlier. Maybe you don't have to please that demanding person just as much. You can make small tweaks. Let's talk about small adjustments. Again, Simone, my approach has evolved on this. Just like you, I know we've shared this journey over the years, and it's been a pleasure. You've been, one of my best connections. And I'll say that if you had talked to me 5 years ago, you would have heard me saying, walk out on the spot. And that's not bad advice. If you can afford to do so, yes. But now I know a deeper reality. We can't all do that.
Yeah.
So you're prioritizing your mental health. You're utilizing resources. You're talking to people. You advance your career by taking massive action to apply to new jobs. And this is something that I also coach people to do, where a lot of people will tell me, Jeff, I can't find a job. And then I'll say, well, how many jobs have you applied to? And they'll say 10 or 20 or 30. And I'll say, great start. Let's do more. Let's keep going. You may only have time to do one a day or a couple a day, but keep going. I was just contracting with a company in Tampa Bay, and I wanted to get out of there, but I didn't leave immediately. And it took me 2 or 3 months to find a better opportunity, but I kept applying. And what I'm seeing, and I say this in the utmost love and from the bottom of my heart, that where people stop in advancing their careers, Simone, is they essentially give up. And
Yeah.
I'm saying this out of empathy. There's zero judgment here. I've been there. And they give up and they stop trying. They say, well, I'm destined for this. I deserve this. No, you do not deserve this behavior. And no, you are not destined for this. Keep going. Go to those networking events. Activate your network. Use LinkedIn. Like I said, apply to new jobs on Indeed. I've had to apply to 20 jobs a day sometimes. I'm speaking purely from my heart right now, as well as all of my research as well. I am so focused on helping others, and I promise you, I know this with certainty, there's a better job out there for you. Just don't give up when you get a lot of rejections in the beginning of the process.
I love what you're saying, Jeff. A couple things that I want to add when you talked about resources, and you also mentioned that you're a coach. Coaching, coaching is a resource because sometimes you can't figure it out on your own. I am a career coach, so I work with a lot of clients on figuring stuff out. So if you're in a space, listener, where you can't figure things out, tap into a career coach. Also, I highly recommend a therapist because there's a lot of stuff happening in life, at work, and you may need additional support to help you sort through and come up with strategies to add to your toolkit. So I did want to add those two thoughts that I have. And I love that you're saying take massive action because sometimes, we don't take enough action to get the results in the timely manner that we want. So when you talk about applying 20, 20, 30 jobs, yet because sometimes too, the algorithm is not in your favor. So you can really get discouraged from not getting the feedback or the opportunity. But if you amp up the numbers and you amp up your relationship building and networking and LinkedIn, like Jeff said, I think those are spot on, Jeff.
Yes, thank you, Simone, and spot on as well. It's an honor to share this space with you and have this conversation. You hit the nail on the head. I will say I've utilized therapy. So folks, what Simone just said, home run out of the park. Therapy is crucial, and that was actually a huge part of my healing as well, where I was able to uncover, some deeper abuse in my own experience, and healing through that also allowed me to get the confidence to advocate both for myself and others in the workplace a lot more.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought up advocate for yourself. What are some tips for our listeners to hone in on in terms of finding your voice and using your voice? Because sometimes these things can be happening, but we don't know how to say it or how to advocate for ourselves. What are some things that you've learned along the way and in the book about using your voice, how to use your voice and how to advocate for yourself?
First off, talk to colleagues. Not all of colleagues, not everyone. Ones you get a good vibe from, ones you
Mm,
trust, ones you have a rapport with. In nearly every case, and I'm not going to say every case, but almost every case of all of these people that I've spoken to and interviewed said that they thought they were alone in experiencing this until they talked to others. And
mhm.
get this, Simone, everyone else thought they were alone in experiencing it. This is huge in finding your voice. I'm not saying you have to go and fight the dragons by yourself. Collaborate with colleagues you trust. Build that confidence where you can speak up together. And
Mhm.
it may not mean that you go straight to the CEO. I've gone straight to the CEO a number of times because I have a comfort level there, because I also interview CEOs a lot. But if you don't feel comfortable doing that, you don't have to do that. It might mean speaking up to your boss's boss. It could mean speaking up to HR if you feel like HR is decent. Not all HR departments are good. Some are, but not all. It could mean talking to the executive assistant in the office and getting their advice. You have more resources than you think and feel and see immediately. I promise you that. So that's how you find your voice, collaborating with others, talking to others, realizing you're not alone, and then taking those steps to speak up if you can talk to someone or you can share it with someone. And in extreme cases like severe bullying, not just severe bullying, any kind of bullying, harassment, you could be facing demands and threats. In that case, I would go to the highest levels of your organization or possibly even seek legal support like I did when I was living overseas.
That's amazing. It can be overwhelming and it can be costly. And so when you think about resources that you had access to, Jeff, are there anything that is cost effective that can be helpful? Because you talk about legal counsel. I imagine you're in the hospital, you're fighting for what's right, and it's probably not one and done. I assume it's a journey and that it can be costly. So did you discover any cost-effective resources along the way?
Yes. So I'll share this. And yes, to call the situation bizarre would be an understatement. I mean, this blew up beyond what I could have ever imagined and beyond my worst nightmare, by the way. I'm not glad this happened. Simone, I involved seven lawyers. I had one main lawyer, and when I say seven lawyers, I actually consulted the advice and legal counsel of seven. So there's a couple things here. One, I would see if you can get legal support through your company, through possibly your bank, and things like that. So how did I do it overseas? Well, I actually had a system through my bank in the Netherlands that allowed me to have access to legal support, and that's where I was able to utilize them. Two, you can get legal support through your company. You may have a lot of bad eggs at your company. It may be toxic. Not everyone there is evil. There are many companies I've contracted, consulted, and worked for, where I was able to get something called Legal Shield through the company. So if you can get that set up in advance, don't wait until something goes wrong. See if you can give yourself that safety net in advance. And that's what I had, one through my bank overseas, and for American companies, I had it through my company. The third thing I'd say is that keep in mind that not all legal advice has to cause you to go broke. If you feel like you don't have access immediately to a lawyer, you can always do brief consulting sessions. Sometimes some offices will give you a free session. You can think about that. Sometimes there can be certain ad hoc deals. If you give your certain situation to certain lawyers, that's where you can look. You can look at possible cheaper options and shop around. Don't just look at one or two options. Look at many legal options. It might be your fourth, fifth, sixth, or even seventh lawyer you talk to who might be the affordable one. That may not solve everything, but those are some of my best insights to get legal counsel.
Well, thanks for that Legal Shield one. I mean, I never would have thought about looking inside your organization to get access, because of course there's psychological safety or trust issues, but you're talking about perhaps incentivized pricing when you say go inside your organization. Is that what you mean?
That's exactly it. You pay a little bit amount per paycheck, and I'll say this: there's a company that I'm contracting with in Tampa Bay, and I don't need it. I don't need it. I just have it just in case. I have access to Legal Shield and a whole array of lawyers because I have it through the company that I'm contracting with. So yes, if you do a little bit per paycheck, it's something like $14 or $15 per paycheck. And yeah, of course, I'd prefer to put that into my savings account, but now I have it if I need it. So that's a huge thing. Sometimes the very company that's hurting you might be actually the resource you can utilize to be able to transcend the situation. And no, I don't mean that as some clever play on words. I'm talking about my own experience here.
That's awesome, Jeff. Thanks for sharing that. So, as we begin to wrap up, tell us a little bit about the book and where listeners can get the book.
Yes. So this is my fourth book, and I am very happy, excited, and honored to say it is now live on Amazon. So you can go directly to Amazon. And for the first 3 months, I'm going to be focused on Amazon, and then month 4 and beyond, I'll share it in other retailers as well. And it's called The Courage to Leave: Breaking Free from Toxic Workplaces. And it is available in ebook version, print, hardcover. And as of mid-May, it's now being processed by the back end of Amazon, of Audible. I'll also have the narrated version available too. If you prefer to listen to it, I narrated it myself. That will also be available too. Go right to Amazon. It's gotten some fantastic feedback from the beta readers, Simone, and I promise it adds a lot of value.
All right. Well, I'll be sure to add it to the show notes. And I know the journey of audiobook I've narrated my own 52 tips for owning your career. So I know the journey, and I followed your story online, and I was like, but I think it's great that you are narrating your story. I actually feel like it's more powerful that you are narrating your Audible version.
Yes. I'm curious, Simone. What was your reaction when you saw the story behind the audiobook?
Well, I said you were in the driver's seat because you said, I'm not going to be paying this much. I'm not going to pay you more. I'm going to get in the driver's seat, and I'm going to do my book myself. I was like, go, Jeff, go, Mr. Mountaintop.
That's exactly it. And, no hard feelings, of course, but initially I had, someone else who was going to do it, and certain opinions came up and certain things came up, and I paid him a lot of money. He can keep the money. Everything is satisfied there. But I decided, you know what, just like I encourage people to stay in the driver's seats of their careers and to keep taking action, I also decided to stay in the driver's seat of my own book. So what a perfect example.
What a perfect way to end the show. I being in the driver's seat, that's what this show is all about. So, Jeff Davis, I want to thank you for returning to the power of owning your career. You are always welcomed here. So feel free to come back again. And thank you for being a guest on the Power of Owning Your Career podcast.
Simone, absolute pleasure to be here. I really enjoyed this time with you.
Awesome. That's it for today's empowering episode. I'm Simone E. Morris, and I want you to remember that you are indeed the architect of your career. Share this episode if it sparked something in you. Subscribe wherever you listen, and find more resources at SimoneMorrisEnterprises.org. keep practicing career ownership, and I'll be right here with you next week for more transformation.